Hi, what's up, Rev? It is good to be with you tonight. I am so glad that all of you made it across all of our campuses. So, hey, listen, last week we started a new teaching series called The Fog. And in this series, we are taking a closer look at anxiety and depression and how it affects our lives, but more importantly, how we can clear our lives and our minds from the fog and find a better way forward. And so, tonight what we're going to do is we're going to take some time and we're going to talk about how to find hope or what to do when we're looking for hope in any situation. Speaking of hope, I think spring is here, you guys. Come on, right? Oh man, it's been warm outside. I didn't wear a winter coat. I just wore this today. This is all that I wore, no winter coat. It was awesome. It's the best feeling in the world. Didn't shovel my driveway this morning. So awesome, okay? But for real though, for a while it felt like winter was hanging on, right? February was a long, snowy month that I was like making peace with the fact that I was never gonna be warm or happy ever again. I have to stay inside and eat double stuffed Oreos for the rest of my life, which kind of actually sounds pretty awesome. So maybe I just will still do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's easy to get caught up in seasons and situations and begin to lose hope that they're ever going to end. Maybe a tangible example for you guys right now is school. Right? Seniors, does it feel like this year's ever going to end for you? Or what about those times and those moments where you're caught up in your friend group and there's constant stress or drama and it feels like it's going to continue. It's never, ever going to end. And then for many of us, if we're honest with ourselves, it might not look that way on the outside, but on the inside, we are battling with serious anxiety and depression day in and day out, and we're beginning to wonder if we'll ever feel happy or content again. My point is that losing hope can be really, really easy. It's easy to convince ourselves that we'll never graduate, that we'll never find a better or healthy friend group, or that we'll never have a day where we're not anxious or depressed. But the problem is that when we give up on hope, when we stop looking for hope, when we give in to anxiety and depression too easily, we're really giving up on ourselves, but more importantly, we're giving up on God and what He is able to do for us. And so we have to find a way to hold on to hope if we ever want to clear our minds and our lives from the fog and find a better way forward. And so tonight, what I want to do is I want to give all of you 2 reminders that can stand as helpful reminders to find hope in any situation that you might have. And the first reminder I want to talk about tonight is this, that there is more. So there's a book in the Bible called the Psalms. You've probably heard of it. It's maybe the most famous book in all of the Bible. But basically what the Psalms are is a collection of songs and poems and prayers by real people with real problems who were calling out to God. And there's a section near the end of the book of Psalms that's been known as the Psalms of Ascent. And the reason they're known as that is because these are songs, actual songs that Jewish people would sing as they left their towns and their villages, and they would ascend up to the city of Jerusalem. And the reason they were going to Jerusalem is because that's where you went if you wanted to worship God. And many people had to travel a lot of miles in order to get there. And that journey came to be known to symbolize a journey of faith. Because along the way, people would encounter difficulties and problems and anxieties and stress and depression, thinking, man, we're never, ever going to actually show up in Jerusalem. And these songs were there for them to sing, to remind themselves, and I think to remind us, that even in those moments, we can keep going, that hope is available to us. So let's check out one of those Psalms together. Psalm 121, starting in verse 1 says this, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Now, Psalm 121 is a chapter that I go back to a lot in my life, especially in seasons when I'm beginning to lose hope. And there was one season in my life that I felt that kind of weirdly. So after college, one of the first jobs I ever got was as an administrative assistant, and I was terrible at it. Like, terrible at it. Because here's the deal. Administrative assistants do not get the credit that they deserve. They're basically in charge and responsible for getting all of the stuff done in any organization or business or church. Like, they get stuff done for a living. I mean, they are answering phone calls, answering stupid questions from people like me. They're organizing calendars and taking care of details. Like they are doing stuff. And the problem for me is that I'm basically bad at everything an administrative assistant's supposed to be good at. Like I no good at details. I don't understand how the calendar works on my computer. And I don't like talking on the phone. Those three things alone disqualify me. I don't know how I got this job. But really, I did not like working there. Not because it was a bad job, but because I just wasn't very good at it. And I worked there for 6 months. And every day that I worked there, every minute that I worked there felt like a tiny eternity, like it was never, ever going to end. But here's what began to happen. Because I wasn't very good at it, I started hearing this voice in my head. And the voice would tell me like, man, you're never going to be good at this. You'll never figure this out. This will never make sense to you. And I began to like slowly believe it. And the voice grew. And it began to tell me and convince me that not only will I not be good at that job, but I won't be good at any job. That I don't have anything to offer, anything that I do, and I began to feel like a failure. That whatever I had to offer in my life was just kind of depleted and not useful for anything. And the reason I tell you that is because that's what losing hope feels like. We begin to hear a voice in our head that's telling us that we can't do good in school, or that we'll never find someone who actually loves us for us, or that we're not good enough, or smart enough, or perfect enough, or capable enough. And then we believe it. We give it power over us. And our perspective then on ourselves and on our lives and even on God begins to shrink until it's so small. And then the idea of looking up, looking beyond ourselves, looking for something else that's more, seems totally impossible. See, I think that's what the writer of Psalm 121 was dealing with. He was in a valley of difficulties. He had a voice in his head that was pounding with disappointment and failure. And he lifted his eyes and he saw mountains, but he saw no help on the horizon. Nobody was coming to his rescue. But it was in that moment that he remembered. He remembered that there is more. He remembered that his hope doesn't come from mountains. His hope comes from the one who created the mountains. His hope was beyond what he could see right in front of him. He remembered that there is more than mountains in this life. There is hope, and it comes from God. When we're in seasons where we're beginning to lose hope, what we see right in front of us is disappointment, or failure, or anxiety, or depression. It's at that moment right there that we need to remember that there is more. And the more that's out there is offered to us by God. See, I'm here tonight to tell you that there is more for you than your failures. You might have gone your whole life and someone hasn't said that to you. I know that you failed. We all have. And I'm here to tell you that you are more than your failures. There is more than your disappointments. There is more than your difficulty. There is more than your anxiety. There is more than your depression. And regaining a sense of hope in your life begins when you stop believing everything that voice in your head is telling you and start remembering that there is more and that it's offered to you freely by God. So the first reminder that we all need in our lives if we want to regain a sense of hope is that there is more. And the second reminder is this: to come out of hiding. Come out of hiding. So in high school, I had a friend whose whole world revolved around football. Football was his life. He was the dude who got a leather jacket and literally never took it off. It's gross, okay? But he's the guy who's working countless hours in the gym. He's watching hours of film. He put in the work. He was dedicated and really good at the sport. But one day he shows up for practice and his left knee kind of hurts. Not a lot, just a little bit. He figures like, man, it's just a little bit of pain. Nothing is going to stop me from playing this game, so he kept quiet about it. He didn't tell anyone. He pushed through the pain. And then over the weeks, that pain that was kind of annoying at first started to become excruciating. To the point that if he tried to put any weight on it at all, he almost buckled underneath the pain. But once again, he was nervous, you see, because he didn't want people to think that, or tell him that he couldn't play the game, or even worse, think that he didn't have what it took to play the game. And so again, he kept quiet. He pushed through the pain. He started compensating by putting the weight on his other leg, and he started to play practices and playing games until one night he was in a game and he went up to catch a touchdown and he landed on his left knee and he tore his ACL instantly. And for weeks after that, he had to have surgery. He had to go into weeks of recovery. And after it was all said and done, he was telling me and our friends about his regret. And it was his regret that stands out to me, because he didn't regret playing on an injured knee. He didn't even regret going up for that final touchdown. What he said was, I regret that I continued to push through my pain to find myself all alone. And what he meant by that was, he had a team around him. He had friends like me and others around him. But he isolated himself and he isolated his emotions and didn't let anyone in. And so he felt like he was all alone, in pain and alone. And as I heard him say that, my first thought was, man, I do that. See, for me, it's not a game, it's not the sport of football, it's like my everyday life. Like if I'm real with you, I will go through seasons and I will enter into situations where I have really negative self-talk, where what I'm saying to myself is really nasty. I'll go through seasons where I'm constantly anxious, where I'm worried a lot. And it'll be with me. I'll have self-defeating thoughts and insecurities, and I would rather not tell anyone about it. I would rather choose to suffer in silence than to let anyone in, because if I let them in, they might know that I'm weak. They might think that I'm stupid. They might think that I'm insecure. And that's worse to me than letting them in. And so I think I can handle it. I can do this on my own. No one has to know what's going on. But friends, hear me, for real, hear me on this. When no one knows what's going on inside of you, that's when you're alone. When no one knows what's going on inside of you, that is when you're alone. And the dangerous part about being alone like that is we tend to stop letting other people in to tell us what's true. And when we don't know what the truth is, we lose hope. In the book of Proverbs, which is another book in the Old Testament, the author is giving some advice to people who are thinking about going into war. And this is what he says. He says, surely you need guidance to wage war, and victory is won through many advisors. See, I think there's this belief, there's this thought in the world right now that we can do life, we can do this by ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that you can't, that none of us can. All of us have battles going on within us. Maybe your battle is addiction. Maybe your battle is obsession. Maybe your battle is depression or anxiety or on and on and on. But none of those battles, hear me, none of those battles are meant for you to fight on your own. Because nothing inspires a loss of hope in us than realizing that we are fighting all by ourselves. That is not how it's supposed to be. And there was a season in my life where I was fighting all alone and I was losing hope. So at the time, there was a bunch of things that were changing, and I struggle with change. I like rhythm and routine in my life, and change is hard for me to get over. It's hard for me to get through. And at this point, there was a lot of things changing in my life. And so I was trying to figure it all out, but I wasn't doing well. I was worried and anxious, and my stomach was in knots a lot of the time. But I decided not to tell anyone, that I could handle it on my own. I didn't tell my wife, which led us to constant misunderstandings and miscommunications and eventual fights. I didn't have the courage to actually tell my friends what was going on, so I stopped responding to text messages and invitations, which pushed them further away until finally I stopped talking to God completely because I didn't want him to see what was going on inside of me. I was ashamed. I thought I could just push through. I thought I could get through. You know, I was like my friend trying to play with an injured knee, but I wasn't playing a game. I was living my life. and everything suffered. My work, my relationships, my relationship to God, none of it was working. And then finally one day, everything broke. I was at home alone with my wife and my daughter, and I've, for whatever reason, just began to weep uncontrollably out of nowhere. And it crippled me. Literally, I fell to the ground and I was in the fetal position because what I didn't know then, but I know now, was I was having a severe panic attack. My wife didn't know what to do. And so she called my father-in-law. I'm really close to my father-in-law. And so when he walked into the room and he saw me there, he just came and he sat down next to me. Just let me know that I wasn't alone. And he sat there for a while, and then after a while, he began to say these words over me. He just said, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams." And he said it to me over and over and over again, as if to remind me that not only was he there, God was too. And then I kind of came to. My panic subsided. And after it was over, my father-in-law looked at me and he pulled me into his arms and he just said, "Don't hide from us anymore." And friends, that's my challenge for all of you tonight. Don't hide anymore. Take a risk and experience the hope that's available to you when you let God in, when you let people you trust in, when you realize that you are not alone and that hope is here for you. Friends, what I want you to get out of tonight is that hope is not a thing that you do or do not have. Okay? Hope is not a possession. Hope is remembering. Hope is remembering day in and day out to call out to God. Hope is remembering that there is more to this life than anxiety or depression and any other difficulty. Hope finds us when we are finally willing to come out from hiding and show us a better way forward. Hope is remembering that God is with us because, friends, he is the one who's in the valley with us when no other help is coming. He is the one who greets us when we're finally ready to be found, and he welcomes us home and he tells us to stop hiding. God is our greatest hope. So tonight, right now, what I want to do is I want to invite the bands to come up at all campuses. And we're going to sing one last song together. But before we do, I want to do something with just us. So if you would, at all campuses, if you would stand with me for a moment. What I want to do is I want to read to you the words that were read to me when I didn't have any hope left. When I was broken, when I was on the floor, I needed these words. I needed this reminder. And maybe that's you tonight. Maybe you came in with little hope. Maybe you came in broken tonight. Maybe you had a panic attack today. I just want you to listen to these words. Wherever you're at in your connection and your relationship to God, just listen for a moment. And when I'm done, we'll sing a song together, and then we'll be on our way. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths and brings honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid because he is close beside me. His rod and his staff protect and comfort me. He prepares a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessing. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Friends, hope is here for you. It is not far off. It is not distant. It is here and now. And so let's sing this song together at all campuses and find our hope in God.